What's going on, guys? You guys are listening to the Zack Scriven podcast. I'm Zack Scriven, your host, and today's show is sponsored by Intellic Integration, Zack Scriven Media, and viewers like you. Thank you guys for making this show possible. In this podcast, we're going to be helping you get the most out of life and in business. Today's guest is someone very special. She is a podcaster, a consultant to entrepreneurs who want a purpose-filled life and business. So very similar to what my core values are. And she's a speaker and MC as well. And she's coming from all the way from Melbourne, Australia. She's a business succession advisor for the Infinite Financial Group. She also had her own clothing line before, so she definitely knows a lot about business. I'm looking to learn a little bit about how to improve my podcasting skills with her. So give me a hand in giving Tima Elhajj a warm welcome and for joining the Zack Scriven podcast. Tima.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was moving things around.
No worries. You're live on the Zack Scriven podcast. Thank you so much for being a guest today. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm really, really honored to be on your show. So thank you so much for having me.
So why don't you tell the guests, the viewers, a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from and, you know, what your journey has looked like and what you do now.
So I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I have my own family. I'm married. I have a beautiful girl. She's 8. And what I'm doing at the moment is I also have my own podcast, and it's all about inspiring people to take action. We'll definitely talk about that a bit later on. I'm also a speaker, but I'm also a consultant, mentor, coach, whatever word you want to use. I help people in business really create the idea that they have in mind and bring that to life. But I also help top level executives really create, get into more leadership roles and just sort of help them just grow as people. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
So one of the things that stood out to me when we connected was that you were a podcaster, and you know I have my own podcast, and it was about it says people who want to live a purpose-filled business and life, and that's kind of what my podcast is about. It's like getting the most out of life and in business. So when did you decide to make a podcast, and how did that go?
Well, it was really on my mind for about 3 years. And just like anything, you know, you talk yourself out of it, because at the time I was in the financial services industry. So I was running my own financial planning business. And I kept having these keywords come to me, which was inspire, educate, communicate, and impact. And I loved the whole world of podcasting and the communication aspect of it, and the fact that you are helping and teaching people. But I wanted to have my own podcast, but it just really felt so outreach because it had nothing to do with what I did in terms of full-time work. And when I decided to finally do it was at the end of last year. I said, that's it. In 10 years, if I'm going to regret this decision, then I need to do this now. And I really, one of the other reasons that pushed me to actually creating the podcast is because my mission behind it is really what drove me toward it, which is I want people to understand that their potential is limitless and that we can be that person that we want to be, and we can create that life that we've always wanted to have. So for me, on a selfish aspect, I really wanted to get to surround myself with really incredible people so that I could ask the questions that I want for myself, but at the same time also help and educate other people that are listening in, not just to be inspired and go, you know what, that was a really great podcast. I really want them to be inspired to actually take action. So that's the background story to the podcast.
That is amazing. One of the things that, you know, that I really resonated with me when you said is like our potential is limitless, and it's not as intuitive or easy to actually believe that as it is to say it. So in your experience, what are some of the reasons why we put these limitations on ourselves and try to think that we can't, achieve our biggest dreams?
I think there's so many elements to it, isn't there? I think definitely one is fear on many different levels. So fear of failing, fear of what people would, say about you or their perception of you. But I think another element of that is we're not in tune to our gut as we really should be. And I think what happens over time, especially, I don't know how old you are, Zach, but like especially like from my generation, you were told to live life a certain way. You go to school, you go to university or college, you get married, you have kids, you have a mortgage, and that's pretty much the life set out for yourself. And the desires and that feeling of greatness, I call it, within you, or that gut feeling, we really ignore over and over again. And this may be a general statement, but this is just sort of my personal experience. And the more you ignore that feeling of greatness or that gut feeling that you have, which I personally believe is a message from God or whatever you believe in, you're betraying your soul. And when you keep ignoring that, you lose yourself in the process, and then you kind of blend in and feel more and more conditioned to live the life that we're all told to live, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I think fear and that element of disconnect from your gut or from your greatness or that message from the universe or God is really what really stops people. That's just my personal opinion on it.
That's amazing. It's like one of those things that once I started putting out content and kind of fighting that fear, I think that fear, it's always kind of there to an extent, but you kind of get used to training your brain to like reject that fear and push on despite that like kind of instinct to, not, put out content or be afraid of what people think. So like one of the things I started doing was just sharing everything about my life, for better or for worse. Especially after I quit my job to pursue content creation full time. And I know like a lot of other creators are actually starting to do that. And it's like this new wave of like content and video and entrepreneurs. And it's just amazing community. And it's not like a competition. It's more like collaboration. And, it's not like, oh, because I have my podcast, I don't want to talk to you because you have a podcast. Like it's kind of more collaborative, and I don't know, that's what I love. So as for official question, what are your biggest fears?
Okay, my biggest fear is becoming so engrossed in what I'm doing that I may lose connection with my family, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh,
so
gosh.
I love what I'm doing. And I none of it scares me anymore, because the way I look at what I'm doing is it's all purely growth. I'm teaching myself skills that I, didn't have initially or did have, but just building on it. But it is very time consuming, as you would know, Zach, especially if you're everything to your own business and your podcast or whatever else you're doing. And I love being a mother. I love being a wife. I love my family, all those things. And sometimes my biggest fear is I don't want to forget living in the moment, as well as enjoying all of these precious moments that I have with my little girl. And she's 8. And before I know it, she'll be 20. She'll have her own life. And I don't want to regret missing out on things. But I'm a realist too. I do believe in the fact that balance doesn't really exist. I know people talk about balance. My personal opinion on balance is that if you're working on something, you're compromising your time with something else. So I just need to be very conscious of that fear of missing out precious moments with my daughter and losing that disconnect. But I don't think that will ever happen, because I'm so aware of it, and I work very hard every day to make sure that I'm connected with everybody around me, because really for me that's what matters more than anything. So the fear element, everything else I find really exciting, because it's such a growth experience. And that's my honest opinion, my honest response to your question.
That is awesome. struggle with that myself, or at least I'm aware of it. But I think we all kind of come up short. I guess we could all do better. But like one of the reasons why I quit my 9-to-5 job, to do this, was, because it's kind of my passion, but also because it allows me to spend more time with my daughter, spend more time with my wife. She's a flight attendant, so we can travel everywhere. Like I'm going to
I'm so jealous, by the way.
Hawaii later this month. So and that's why I was saying, like, oh, I could just come to Sydney, no big deal, it's just having the time and having an open seat to kind of fly standby to get there. But to back to my point is, like, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was to be able to spend more time with them. And if I just then get completely absorbed in my work and I'm, producing 10 videos a day and I kind of go overboard, then I kind of defeated the purpose of doing it in the first place. So it's something that I think we all struggle with.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at the start, because like for both of us, Zach, we sort of, I believe, I could be wrong, the timing of our journey was very, very close. And, we're still learning. We're still trying to find our momentum, and I'm sure we'll eventually get there. But at least we're mindful of it and we're aware of the things that we're afraid of. So that's a great start, don't you think?
Yeah, it's an amazing start. So I have a question. So one of, I guess not my biggest fears, but my fiance, Mary, her biggest fears is she's kind of conflicted with supporting me in doing this, because while she knows that it's now a thing, it's now the way I'm going to be providing for our family. So she wants me to succeed, but at the same time, she is very private, and she doesn't like having our daughter on social media a lot, and like my profile pictures with her. Mm-hmm. So it's like kind of having to balance that, being on camera and having lots of people see your life with also like the respect for privacy. So like, what tips would you have for me to be able to balance that relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really goes back to your mission. What is your mission for doing what you're doing? What is the message that you want to share with the world, really, in the end? And does it involve having to share your family with the world constantly, let's say? Because I think you've got a great balance. Even though I said balance doesn't exist, I do believe you have a great balance with that. Mm-hmm. I think, to be honest, the way I would want to gauge my direction with that is going back to my mission. What is my mission? And does that align with my mission? So I would say for you, that's a question you should probably ask for yourself with a majority of the decisions you would be making. Does this align with my vision? Does this align with my mission? And if it does, then you do whatever it is that you want to do. If it doesn't, then don't do it. So I hope that helps you.
Yeah, I think it does. It's like I kind of go back and forth with her because, I think for her, it's like she wants to be secure and she doesn't want something to happen to our daughter for being online, kind of like, don't talk to people on the internet. I think the world has kind of been changing from that, but, those fears are still in here. But I kind of have been talking to her about maybe having her on my podcast, kind of to share our personal story, like some of our testimony. Like, for example, we did Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University class. And like, so I was like, hey, maybe we should do a video together and talk about our experience of how it helped us to work together on our finances, focus on paying off our debt, and then allow us to be able to take risks like me quitting my job. And so she's like open to it, but I don't know. It kind of depends on the time of day, like if she's in a good mood. So anyways, I think that might actually help to get her more open to that idea. I'm always kind of pushing the limits. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. No, I understand where you're coming from, and obviously also, with your partner, she obviously loves you and your daughter, and it's just that fear of the unknown. And I think once you provide that evidence of whatever determination of success is for her, whether it's financial or whether it's looking at statistics or whatever that may mean for her, once you provide that evidence, I think that'll give her a little bit more ease in terms of where you're heading. So But no, I love that you're trying, your best to help her feel a lot more comfortable with everything you're doing. It really says a lot about how you feel about her. It's beautiful.
It is really a struggle to balance that, but like, I think we all have room to grow, right? I have room to grow in terms of balancing her needs within my business, and she has terms to grow in terms of, being more open. And so we're kind of growing together. We're really like complete opposites, but I think that's why we make a good partnership. So maybe tell me if you're able to share some struggles that you've had balancing your business, and kind of if you had any stories to share about that with your family, and kind of.
Well, I think the struggle for me was more on a personal loyalty aspect, where when I was having the conversations with so just a background story, I was running my financial planning business for a number of years, and only in the last, I would say, few weeks did I make that clear-cut decision of wanting to now completely do all of this full time and move on from my other business. So
congrats.
Thank you.
So the Infinite Financial Group, you no longer work at that position, or?
Well, yeah, that's I'm one of the partners in that business, and so we all run our own businesses under that brand, but we're all running our own businesses, if that makes sense. So okay. What I did was to not really just test the waters. I just wanted to know whether, one, I could do this, the podcasting. I've always been doing consulting work for a number of years, but the podcasting in particular, and doing the speaking on a full-time basis, if you like, as an actual career. I wanted to sort of see, rather than jump into it, because I've learned from my mistakes in the past. I've had, other businesses in the past, and I wanted to be a lot more strategic and not just throw myself into something. So I said to myself, if I want to have my own podcast, I want to be the best version of myself being on this podcast. If I want to be a speaker, I want to be the best version of myself being a speaker, and really learning as much as I possibly can before moving on from my financial planning business. So when I was having the conversations with my clients about moving on, I honestly, I thought I would be okay having those conversations. I'm like, no, I feel so great about my decision. I believe in my decision. I know this is the right decision for me and for my family, because I felt so disconnected from my business for so long. Not just the business, but the industry itself. And I found myself trying to push myself to feel reconnected to it. But everything I tried just didn't work. And so I'm like, okay, I need to listen to my gut here. And so when I sat with my clients and I sat with them individually, because I'm not one just to send an email, I'm all about relationships. And these people have trusted me with their lives, their financial lives, not just the money aspect, but also just their own lives. They've opened up to me with many things about, life events and challenges and all those things. So having those conversations with them was really, really difficult. I felt like I was breaking up with, many, many different relationships. And it was, for me, that was really, really challenging. And I definitely had those moments where I thought, oh my God, like, am I making the right decision? What am I doing? I've got these people, they really trust me, and like, what am I doing? And then I remind myself, well, why am I doing all of this? And it went back to my mission, and that just reaffirmed that I'm really scared and all of that. And it's hard to leave an industry that I've been in for so long. Like, it's part of who I am. I've been in the financial planning industry for 17 years. So that was definitely a struggle in terms of feeling like I was letting people down because they trusted me. And also the struggle of that inner struggle. Am I doing the right thing? What am I doing with myself? I'm leaving an industry that I've been in for so long, and it's secure, and I've got a great reputation. I've got to rebuild myself now. All those things were like internal dialogue conversations that I was having with myself. So
that is good. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious as to why maybe you didn't kind of stay within that financial field, but then kind of reframe the way that you like market yourself and provide value, like maybe doing LinkedIn videos around financial. Like, are you just wanting to get out of the financial industry altogether, or?
I sorry about the cough, Zach. I haven't stepped away from the industry altogether in that sense. I still have my my presence in that industry because a lot of the consulting work that I do is within that industry. So I have helped a number of other financial planners, grow their business and reconnect with their clients and do all of these other things. So, but in terms of me being a financial planner, it just I just don't feel connected to it anymore. Like you can probably even just tell with my body language, just even talking about it. There's nothing. It's hard to explain. So to articulate it, like I can feel it inside and I can hear myself in my head, but to articulate it, sometimes I really struggle. So with everything that I'm doing now, my mission is literally fueling everything. So the 3 areas of my podcasting, the speaking, and the consulting work. I'm sort of in this place now where the mission is so much bigger than who I am as a human being that it has nothing to do with my ego. So I really don't care how much money I'm making yet. I don't really care whether people like me. I don't really care about all of those external factors. With the financial planning, there were elements of that ego element, if that makes sense. There was always an element of numbers and do people like me? Do people want me to be their financial planner? And not always. It was definitely elements. It's just the corporate world feel and vibe. And I know that people that are from that industry in that world would totally understand what I'm talking about. And at the same time, the industry, and even though you're running your own business, you're still forced to think a certain way. And I didn't want to be forced to think a certain way because I knew within me that what I was doing was above and beyond financial planning. I was doing a lot more for my clients. But I felt that I was slowly dying inside. And I'm not going to be a great mum. No. And I'm not going to be an amazing wife. And surely I won't be the best financial planner if I keep ignoring whatever I was feeling inside. So that's why I thought I'd set this up on the side and see how I feel. Because you don't know, sometimes something can feel so much more exciting in your head, but then when you do it, you're like, is that it? Yeah. So I wanted to challenge myself. And you've got to understand too, Zach, like for me to put myself out there, that was scary. That was so scary. Being in front of a camera and doing videos and even hearing my voice. Like, I don't know what happened with you, Zach, when you first heard your voice back and you're listening to those little words and you think, do I really say that? Do I really sound like that? So yeah, look, I definitely tried to stay in the industry as a financial planner, but look, the financial services industry is so close to my heart. A lot of my friends are in that industry. A lot of people that I help are in that industry. So I won't ever leave it, but I won't ever go back in that sense of as a financial planner.
I can definitely relate to that because, I kind of had that same feeling when I was a control system engineer. I started out kind of taking over working for my parents at a young age, and then I kind of took over that business. And I was good at it. I was good at math and physics and programming. It just kind of, that's the way my brain was working. And so I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. It makes good money. This is obviously the career I need to do, right? And then when my daughter was actually on the way, and I was running my own business, and I wasn't really good at sales. And there's just something about the industry that I didn't like, just kind of like how you do a project for someone, you kind of pour your spirit into it, and then it's like, oh, well, it wasn't good enough, or someone else would have done it cheaper. It's kind of like a thankless job, kind of like doing a program, getting it to run. It's kind of self-satisfying, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like it was like a commodity, and I don't know, I just didn't really like it. But anyway, so I left doing my own business because I wanted to like have a career and then be able to come home and spend time with my daughter. So I did that for like almost a year and a half, and I kind of start not feeling happy again, and it was almost a little bit too easy, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not really challenging myself. And so I went to another engineering position, this time senior level, and I'm like, oh, for sure, this is going to be like more money, and now I can actually be a good provider. And then it was only like 8 months before I was like literally like pulling my hair out and just miserable. So I'm like, maybe it's not like just not meant to be, right? So I'm like, well, so I love making content. Like I watched actually a video of me when I was like 5 years old touring like a treatment plant. It was like for a what your parents do for work video, and my mom took me to this treatment plant that she had done the control system for, and I'm like 5 years old, and I'm like explaining to them how the process works on film. So I'm like, man, I've always had a passion for video. So my plan was to kind of take, like, because I still love programming and I still love that industry, but I was like, rather than being an engineer within that industry and only helping one project at a time, why don't I do content and help the whole industry kind of as a whole, leverage my passion and my my skills, and kind of it was like almost like a perfect fit. So it's kind of similar to, I guess, your story, and so I just wanted to share that.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, no, I remember when we first connected, I just loved that, one, you were an engineer and you're doing what you're doing, because you're a really cool engineer.
Thank you.
You're very down to earth and very grounded, and nothing against engineers, by the way, but, you're very personable. But there are certain characters in certain industries where it just suits that particular industry, if you know what I mean. But no, it takes courage to move away from what you know. And just quickly, I took a break from the financial planning industry when I first had my daughter Zara.
Okay.
And I set up my own fashion label because I wanted to do something from home. And so I took a break, but then but I knew already then that I didn't really want to go back, but I decided to go back. So I kind of I've learned from that. I've learned from my mistakes, if you know what I mean. So that was one of the other reasons, just to answer your previous question.
Awesome. Yeah. Sometimes, like I was saying, like it almost took me making a senior level position to realize that that's not what I wanted. And I'm fortunate enough that I was able to get there early, so I didn't waste 10, 20 years of like my prime just climbing a ladder to get to a position to realize that's not what I wanted to do. So the quicker I failed, the quicker I iterated, the faster I got to actually, where I am today. So on that note, I'm going to take a quick commercial break to share a word from my sponsor. So this is the Intellic Integration YouTube channel. They are the sponsor of this video. So like I was saying, I'm still involved in the industry. Intellic is a control system integrator. They work on SCADA, MES, OEE, enterprise systems. Making like systems talk to each other, and kind of anything that has like a product, like a bottling line or oil and gas, like any type of manufacturing or industry has a process that they can, tie systems together. So that doesn't have any videos yet, but I'm working on that. We're actually going to probably be releasing the first video today. So if you guys are interested, go over to that YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description, and check out the first video. It'll probably be live by the time you guys are listening to this. And it's really cool that Intellic is like-minded enough and willing to put money into content and marketing and really kind of be funding the dream. So thank you, Intellic, for doing that. I'm so excited to be working with you guys and sharing your message, and looking forward to learning with you guys along the way. I'm not perfect. I'm no marketing expert, but I'm passionate, and I do have industry expertise. So that's pretty much the plug for today. What would you think, Tima?
Amazing. I think you're very passionate, and that's really what people feel really in the end. So, no, amazing. So proud of you.
Thank you. So, because I am a bit of a tech nerd, I'm really curious to kind of see what your podcasting setup is like. What what you use for your laptop, mic, camera, lighting. I see you have a really good set right now. It looks beautiful. So, you want to tell us what you use to make it happen?
I may disappoint you, Zach. I am not a tech nerd. I hope to be one. I mean, that is definitely one of my personal goals. Um, I am learning very, very slowly. But I'm learning. Tech is not really my area of strength at all. You need to speak to my brother because my brother is a tech, like obsessed tech person. So my setup is very, very simple. I needed to have it simple so that I could actually do my podcast. So I have a Rode microphone, a USB microphone
Okay.
that connects directly into my laptop. I use Audacity, but I also have another program that I use, sorry, called Camtasia. It's not specifically for podcasting, but it's just another thing that I can use if I want to for videos and things like that. I do have a Mac as well. So there's GarageBand on that if I am using that for whatever reason in terms of software. If I'm out recording out away from home, then I have a Zoom 6 recorder.
Oh, nice.
With some lav mics, which that's what I pretty much use when I'm filming my podcast, if I am filming for that particular podcast. So the setup is not very complicated, but it was definitely something that I found complicated when I first started because I was watching like YouTube videos on the Zoom recorder and, how to use the microphone in terms of how to edit, all those sort of things, because I wanted to learn how to do it all myself at the start. At some point, I'll outsource it, but right now I'm really enjoying the growth aspect of it. But yeah, it's a very, very simple setup. And I have a webcam. If I am filming, I have someone that helps me with that. So he has a camera, that's all paid for. I pay him for that. But I try and keep it as simple as possible.
Awesome.
So that I can feel inspired to do it. Otherwise, I'll probably talk myself out of it.
Yeah. So you guys don't let, gear be an excuse not to get started. I mean, most people start with just their camera and their phone. I'm still running on like a 2015 MacBook. So,
yeah.
I just invested in this high quality microphone, but, like I said, I'm a bit of a tech nerd, so it was like one thing I really, really wanted. So
what microphone do you have? I'm jealous. It looks so much better than mine.
So this is the Shure SM7B. It's kind of an industry staple for broadcast, podcast. Famously, Michael Jackson's Thriller was recorded on it.
Oh, wow.
Joe Rogan podcast, they have the H3 podcast. Those are some of the podcasts that I listen to. I mean, pretty much this is like the go-to standard. So, I mean, it's a little bit expensive. It's like $400, but you're kind of buying it for life. So
yeah, I agree. And I think the microphone is so important. You have to have a good microphone. So I did my research with that too. But
yeah, the Rode one probably sounds really amazing.
Look, it's great. Even my lav mics are Rode, and I have to say they weren't even that expensive, the lav mics, and the quality is amazing. So there's so many different alternatives, and we live in such a great time where we have access to this equipment. Like, how amazing is that? And we can just buy something for like under $100. It's amazing. Yeah. It's really, really exciting.
There was a really good mic on Amazon for like $30. One of the early guests in my podcast, he didn't have a mic, so I actually bought it on Amazon, shipped it to his office in a gift box, and then the podcast audio was like that much better. But it was kind of cool because I was kind of expecting him to like maybe post a photo of it on LinkedIn and put the hashtag, but he actually recorded his first LinkedIn video using it. So
oh wow,
that was pretty cool. But
great.
Yeah, I mean, for $30, the audio quality is maybe 85% of this. So it kind of goes exponential, like to get that extra 10, 15%, it kind of goes way up. Kind of like DSLR or mirrorless cameras, they can get up into the thousands, but, I'm filming on a $100, $50 C920 camera. So it's like, don't let,
And the quality is amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
I can see everything.
This
even
is you're on your
gray hairs. No.
You're on your MacBook, just webcam, or?
This is actually on my Zeus laptop. So I have two laptops. I don't know why. I just alternate. It just depends on whatever's at reach. And my webcam is just attached to this one. It just depends. My MacBook is pretty old, so I purchased this only a few years ago. I'm due to upgrade the Mac, but that's just more of a cool element. I just want to be cool for my younger brother, so that he just thinks I'm cool. That's why I like Mac
style.
Apple, but look, I can definitely use both systems, but I'm sure that you can teach me a thing or two about tech, because that's something that I aspire to be better, more knowledgeable at.
So, I can definitely help you out with the tech end, but I think that there's probably a lot that you can help me out with on the kind of hosting and talking end. So what are some of the things that you learned, in your time of podcasting to be a good podcast host, and any other tips and tricks that you may have learned to share with me and the listeners if they, want to start their own podcast? Would you share with us what you would recommend?
Okay, so if someone is looking to start their own podcast, I think it's really, really important, and I'm sure that you would agree, Zach, you have to have a clear vision of what you want to achieve from the podcast. I mean, it's all great just sort of putting yourself out there, but if it's really, really random, you're not really going to get the traction that you want. So have a think about whatever that vision is. What are you trying to communicate? And as much as you possibly can, include that without saying it through so many words, but include that, even just the passion of that, in your podcast intros and episodes and whatever you're trying to achieve. I think the mission, I know I've said mission about 100 times in this interview, but I think that is the compass and the guidance that is really, really important for anybody that is wanting to achieve something like having a podcast or something that is going to be out there in the world that people are going to be listening to. Obviously target audience or target market, but I think as long as you have an idea of who will listen and what they want to, what sort of value they want to get out of the podcast, that's definitely something that, whoever is listening to this needs to have a think about and just brainstorm. Mm-hmm. Don't overthink it too much, because if you do, you'll probably talk yourself out of it and not do it. Just put out whatever you can initially and just test the market, if you like, or put it out there and get people that listen to it, people that you really genuinely trust their opinion. But if you do have a clear vision, that will definitely help you, because that is what is going to guide you throughout. I know that that's what helps me. And that's when I was doing my own research as well. That's what I found, the people that I listen to, like Tom Bilyeu, Tim Ferriss, Lewis Howes, they all have a mission, and everything that they do is tied to that. And I wanted to make sure that I included that in my own podcast. And that's definitely the advice I would give somebody else. Okay. In terms of hosting and speaking, do you mean the actual podcast itself, or?
Yeah. Real quick though, for those of you that want to check out, what were the names of those podcasts that you just mentioned?
So Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness. But if you look up the podcast, I'm pretty sure if you just look up Lewis Howes, his podcast will come up. Okay. Impact Theory, so Tom Bilyeu, Bilyeu, and he also has a YouTube channel. They all have YouTube channels as well. And who was the other one that I said? Lewis Howes, Tom Bilyeu, and oh my goodness, I've forgotten the other one. What was the other one that I said? Anyway, when I remember, I'll send it to you, Zach. But okay. But yeah, they all.
For the audience, if they're interested in listening to more content from you, what is the name of your podcast?
Yeah, great question. It's just called Tima, so Tima, and it'll come up as Tima the podcast, but yeah, Tima, so Tim for Mary A. Tim Ferriss was the other one that I was thinking of.
Tim Ferriss.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
if you look up Tima, you'll probably see Tim Ferriss around there. So I'd love to know that I'm equivalent to him, but I'm not yet. But yeah, you'll definitely see my name not far from his. So purely just by chance. So
Awesome. I really liked that little 2-minute kind of highlight reel from your last guest that you posted on LinkedIn. So
with Sarah Centrella.
yes, yes. And she kind of has a similar, story, I guess you could say. It's kind of funny. It's like find myself naturally gravitating towards guests that are like similar, have similar stories as me or have a similar goal, and us kind of working together to talk about that goal helps us get closer to it. So that's why I'm super grateful that you're here today. And I really, like I said, I really like that little video that you had, because it kind of gives me a quick idea of what your podcast is about and what you're going to talk about. And it was really high energy and really well edited. So that I just wanted to, give you props on that.
Thank you so much, Zach. I'm so excited to be on your show. And thank you for looking at the content. That really, really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah, I try to, do my research on my guests beforehand, because I think it makes a much more entertaining podcast rather than, hey, we're just meeting for the first time, so what do you do?
That's right.
But we get busy. Like, there's so much content on the world, so it's like you only can, get bits and pieces from your key influencers, people that you're following. I've been following a lot of people from Australia and down under, like String and Diana and Benny, host of the LinkedIn Lids Off show. So like those are some of my favorite creators from down there, and you as well. So, but yeah, why don't we switch it up a little bit? Tell me about Australia. Like, what's it like to live there? Were you I forget, were you born there or did you move
I was
there?
born here. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I was born here. My parents are originally from Lebanon. I get a lot of questions about my ethnicity. So just in case anyone's wondering, I'm not Spanish. I kind of wish I was. I'm not Italian. I kind of wish I was. Nothing. I love being Lebanese though, but yeah, I get all sorts of ethnic backgrounds. So I was born here. My dad moved here in the late 60s. My mum came here in the mid to late 70s. I speak Arabic, I read Arabic. I was pretty much brought up in a Lebanese sort of upbringing, but I'm very Australian. So I'm proud to be an Aussie, and Australia is such a beautiful country. And we don't say g'day all of the time. So I don't usually use that word, but just as a side comment, we're very, very lucky in this country. And I know a lot of people that have tried to come here and have sadly been, unable to come to Australia. It's such a beautiful, everything about this country is really, really beautiful. We are so blessed with nature. We are so blessed with opportunities. This country is very accepting, and we just have a great attitude. Like, we're really down to earth. And yeah, I mean, it's true. We are very down to earth here, and we've got a great sense of humor. And it's a beautiful country. When you come down here, Zach, we have to meet. So
Okay.
people are going to love you here.
How far from Sydney is Melbourne? Like, is it possible by train or is it by flight?
You can, yeah, you can fly there. It's like a 1-hour flight. It's not far at all. So very, very close. And Melbourne is up sort of closer to the bottom end of Australia. It's more of the colder part of Australia, but we definitely get some beautiful weather here. But we have this sort of phrase that Melbourne has 4 seasons in one day. Like, you can literally wear a puffy jacket, and then suddenly it'll, the sun will just come out and it'll be a very warm day. Or it could be a really beautiful day and you're prepared for a beautiful summer's day, and then suddenly it just pours raining and the temperature drops. It has its own personality here in Victoria. But yeah, no, Melbourne is a beautiful city.
It's a different territory. Is that what you guys call it there? Than
so they're
Sydney?
different states. So
different
Sydney,
states.
Sydney is the capital of New South Wales.
Okay.
So that's the city of New South Wales. So Melbourne is the capital city of Victoria. So it's all different states. That's the word. Yeah, that's the word to use, states.
Okay. Interesting. I'm just looking at the map right now. Just would you consider Australia an island? Or is it too big where it's like not really?
Well, aren't all countries islands when you really think about the technical term of an island?
I guess
But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, look, 100%. The only downfall about Australia is we're so far away from the rest of the world. We really, really are. I mean, to get to Dubai is like 15 hours. I think to get to America is like 20 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So that's the only downfall, is that if you want to go overseas, like it's a you've really got to plan for it. It's a long way away from the rest of the world. So
yeah. Do you find that getting in the way of you traveling, to other countries? Or have you been to the States, or where have you been?
I've never been to the States. I would love to. I just think America is definitely that
bucket list.
Growing up, growing up as a kid, you watch all of the American movies and all of that. So as a kid, even just knowing someone with an American accent was really, really cool. Even if I listen to I know it sounds ridiculous, right? Because, but even if I'm listening to a podcast, if I'm hearing an Australian accent, I'm thinking, oh, hang on, no, where's my familiar American accent, voice that I can hear in my mind? Definitely, America is a country that I'd love to visit at some point, especially New York. That's
one of my favorite.
Yeah, I just love everything about that city, or what I know of that city. I feel close to the country, even though I've never been there. But I think it's because Australia and America have such a great relationship, and it's just sort of like ingrained within our culture as well. So I would love to go there one day.
Well, you'll have to come, and then hit me up, and maybe you come to like LinkedIn local LA or something. And I've been wanting. I really want to. Are you going to go to the LinkedIn local Melbourne next week?
I think it's I'm so sorry, Zach. This cough is annoying. I'm pretty sure that's tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow.
I don't believe I can go to this one, but I'm definitely going to try and go to the next one. So this week is just so busy. So I really would really love to go, but hopefully next time.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you ever come to the States, you have to hit me up, and if I come to Melbourne, vice versa. I've never been to Australia, and I want to visit all the continents, and I don't know, I guess see the southern hemisphere, the night sky, see something different. I think it'd be kind of like being like in a whole new world almost. So that's kind of what appeals to me, and just seeing a different country. Like I was in Canada last week, and for the first time, and it's amazing to see the similarities of another country, but also like the differences that you wouldn't quite understand without actually going there. So definitely Australia is on my bucket list. So,
well, you'll fit right in here. So even if you can't get to Melbourne and you get to Sydney, I'll come over and meet you anyway. So
we'll do. So, so we were talking about your tips for my podcasting, and I guess I was more so looking for tips about like talking and speech delivery. And what are some tips that you have specific to that? Like one of my problems that I know that I've been working on is like having a tendency to cut someone off, and I know I've been told that it's really annoying from the listener's perspective, because they kind of like, oh, Tima's about to get on a point, and then Zach's like, oh, I don't think I did too bad with that today, but so what are some like speech tips that you have?
Okay,
if you don't have any, oh my gosh, I just did. I was gonna say if you don't have any, that's okay too, but I guess I just demonstrated my problem.
No, you don't have any problem at all. I think you're just really excited, and I think that's really what it is. And I love it. I don't think you've cut me off a lot. I do that too, I have to say. I cut people off, but that comes from excitement too. And because I worry about forgetting my point and my question, which is so hard to remember when you're interviewing, isn't it, Jax? I called you Jax. See, I just called you Jack. Zach, excuse me, Zach. So okay. The listening... so my tip is I'm even forgetting the podcast. So when I'm on speaking with someone, I am imagining that we're literally just, even though we are having just a conversation, just, my guest and myself, I sort of don't want to overwhelm myself thinking of the actual podcast and the expectations, let's say, that people might be having. I do my very best just to be really in tune with whatever they're telling me, and hopefully my curiosity will come into play and I'll ask the right questions, if you know what I mean. Okay. So that's kind of the approach that I take. I definitely have a set of questions, but the listening aspect is I just really want to listen to what they're saying. And when I'm listening, I'm really listening. So I'm not focused on my next question. I'm not focused on what questions my viewers would probably want to ask me. I'm focused on really engaging in whatever that person is sharing with me. And at the same time, a lot of it is recorded. I try as much as I can to look at the person's face when they're talking as well, and really humanize the element of it if it is online. So I don't know if that helps, but look, it's definitely something that I'm learning as well. If I find that I'm going to cut the conversation and I'm aware of it, I'll definitely try and hold myself back. But if I feel that it's important to interject and ask a question, because, sometimes you're interviewing and I'm probably going on and on, and you understand the concept of everything that they're saying, but you know that there's another question that's just going to help you understand more on the topic that they're talking about. So that's definitely a real art that I'm still trying to, find my feet around. But in terms of hosting and speaking, I think, so do you mean like speaking into a microphone or speaking into a video, or just speaking in general on the podcast?
Just speaking in general on the podcast. But
okay.
you do have some pretty good tips as far as just kind of being in the moment and kind of let those natural conversations happen. But then also, if you want to make a point, don't feel afraid to interject and kind of shape the direction of the conversation.
Yeah, that's right. And I think sometimes, especially if you're interviewing someone that has a bit of a celebrity status, they're so used to sharing their story. They're so used to, that spiel that they have, or whatever they're trying to share. And I think the real beauty of what you and I can do, and a lot of other podcasters, is you can break that cycle by asking a totally different question that they haven't been asked before. And that's definitely one of the pressures that I put on myself, is I want to ask those questions that is going to bring out a whole other level of emotion from the other person. I definitely do my research, but I don't overwhelm myself. I don't want to know everything about that person, because when I go into the interview, I want to be surprised.
Yeah.
I want to have a genuine response and go, I didn't know that. So can you tell me more about this? Because that's where the curiosity comes into play. So I have an idea, out of obviously respect for my guest. I know what they're doing currently. I know a little bit about their background, all of those things, but I genuinely want the conversation to be, like a natural, progressive conversation. So that could be a tip for somebody that is looking into podcasting, or just not even podcasting, but just human connection.
Yeah.
That's honestly my approach to a lot of things that I do in life in general. I've always had a sense of curiosity, and I want to make sure that if I am speaking to someone, I'm doing my very best to be present and listen to what they have to say. So I was really trying to hold in that cough. I'm so sorry, Zach. I've had this very annoying cough.
That's completely okay. So now I'm gonna cough. So one thing that I learned actually from watching the H3 podcast that they do, when they get to the end of the podcast, they always ask the same question to the guest, and they preface it by like saying, oh, well, we always ask this as the last question, so it's kind of like getting them in the mind of wrapping things up. So they asked something silly like, have you ever had any experiences with ghosts, and then they may or may not have had it, and then they wrap the podcast up. But I actually like that concept. So what I'm doing is, sharing that as a tip for one. But in closing, one of my questions I want to ask you or ask all my guests is, do you have any questions for me? And it's okay if you don't. So.
Okay. I do actually. I've got lots of questions to ask you.
Yeah, we could keep going as long as we want. But yeah, what are your questions?
Okay, let me see. So what is driving you every day to keep doing what you're doing?
So it's definitely, it's God, the 3-letter word, every time I make a mistake or every time I do something wrong, it's probably because I'm straying a little bit off of where God wants me to be. So simply put, that's the main thing that drives me. There are other things that kind of, work their way in there, like my desire to work from home, my desire to help people, listening to all the feedback when I have a piece of content that resonates or helps someone, like, maybe they posted their own LinkedIn video, or maybe they're like, it got them to rethink whether or not they wanted to take that next job, and they message me and let me know. That's so rewarding. So, I mean, but that's, all those things kind of are in addition to, I think the core principle is definitely God. Lila Smith, actually, she helped me figure out my super objective, and it got me thinking, I'm like, what is my super objective? And it's got to be serving God in all things that I do, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's all that really matters is, finding, and it kind of speaks to me, because it's like God created us with a purpose, if that's what you believe, and that's what I believe. So why would I not try to find that purpose, and help others find their purpose? So that's kind of what drives me. But then also, like, my love for tech, my love for programming, helping others, hanging out with my daughter, it all drives me. And then there's ups and downs, like I said, it's kind of all so new, and I was so excited. And then I kind of like snapped back, and I didn't post a video for a day or two, and I was like, oh, kind of having some anxiety. But then once I break through that and I start posting again, and then I kind of get back into it. So, but at the end of the day, it's God. So I do appreciate that question.
I love your videos, honestly. And I'll tell you why, because you're so genuine. It's your genuine nature that comes through. And I really believe that's your secret to your success now and your future success.
Okay.
Is that you're genuine. And I think that can be so easily lost amongst all of this. So you're very genuine, and it's really beautiful. And I love that you've taken the courage, and your super objective is incredible, and that's going to help guide you to do amazing things. So I'm so excited for your future. I really, really am, and I'm excited that we met early on, because we're going to see each other.
We could be rooting for each other, and
100%. That's right.
I don't know if my story has any value to add to your podcast, but if you ever need a guest, in a pinch, just hit me up or schedule it. I'm always looking for guests. So if any of your listeners or anyone listening to this podcast, you guys have anyone in mind, let me know down in the comments, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. All the contact information for Tima is going to be in the description. Thank you again so much. It's so amazing to have you. And, it's
my pleasure.
Coming up on just over an hour. So, I mean, it's a lot of time, but I hope that, everyone got a lot of value. I know I did. So
thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor. And like I said, I'm so excited to see where you'll be in a month's time, let alone in 12 months time. So thank you so much, Zack.
All right, guys, I'm going to end it. Thank you guys for listening to the Zack Scriven podcast. Make sure to get subscribe, or maybe even leave us a review on iTunes. And we'll see you guys in another episode of the Zack Scriven podcast. Peace out.